What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Kara Corey here, registered dietitian. And for today's video, we're going to talk a little bit more about bikini prep or just bodybuilding prep in general. One of the number one questions I get asked or folks commonly email me about is sending me their photos and saying, will I be ready for my show in time? Or the question will very generally be, how long does one need to do a prep for? How long do I need to cut? How long do I need to be ready before I hit that bodybuilding stage? So that is what we're gonna talk about today. And before we jump right into that topic, I just wanna remind you guys to check out and make sure you are subscribed to the channel. And if you're not already subscribed, then go ahead and hit that button. We're here a couple times a week. I do a lot of nutrition, some fitness content sprinkled in there, some lifestyle, bodybuilding stuff, a little bit of everything up in here alongside my very sleepy, snoring 150-pound Cane Corso, Mr. Bruce Wayne. This question can also be very applicable to folks who are just generally trying to lose weight and meet their weight loss goals. So if you're not someone interested in bodybuilding, please stay tuned because this may be helpful for you as well, because we're more generally just talking about the process of cutting and reaching your ultimate goal. Whereas with bodybuilding, yes, it becomes a little bit more extreme, but you may still find this video helpful if you are just trying to manage your weight loss goals. For everyone, this is going to be a little bit different. So I'm gonna talk you through basically the pros and cons of doing what would be considered a shorter prep versus a longer prep. And I've mostly done what would be classified as a shorter prep in my competition history, if you will. So I've done loads of competitions. If you guys don't know, I haven't competed in a couple years, given myself a nice long break to focus my attention on other things. But in my history of competing, which I was competing for 7 years, something like that, did a bunch of preps, and I mostly stuck with 8 to 12 week preps. I think the longest prep I did was maybe 14 weeks, and that wasn't even really taking it seriously yet. I more so was like an 8 to 12 week prepper, which can be considered relatively short based on what coach you speak with, based on what competitor you speak with. So I'm just going to give you the pros and cons of a shorter prep. For me personally, doing a shorter prep, it was easier for me to kind of put the blinders on and say, okay, I only have 2 months, or I only have 3 months to really grind this out. There is no time built in here to make mistakes. There's no time for me to fuck up. There's no time for me to miss workouts, etc. So I kind of always do better under pressure. Like, I'm one of those people that does really well under pressure, and I'm just honestly a procrastinator at life. Like, I procrastinate everything. So even with a prep, like, I'd rather procrastinate and then put the pedal to the metal for 8 to 12 weeks. And with that, I feel like I was always able to just kind of find my flow with it. When I did my very first prep, I made a lot of mistakes. You know, I didn't know much about bodybuilding at the time, and I made mistakes with messing up on my diet. I made mistakes with missing workouts because I didn't really understand the importance of how missing one workout could really impact your look come show day. So in my personal experience, that always worked for me. However, and a big however here, is really it's gonna depend on where you're at when starting a bodybuilding prep. And for my last prep that I did in 2017, when I was prepping for my pro debut, I felt the pressure I didn't feel the pressure to prep, but I felt the pressure in effort to maintain my pro card. I was on a time limit, so they said. I don't really know that that's the truth, but my understanding was I had to compete essentially within a year to keep my pro card. So I don't feel like I entered that prep in the best spot, or the spot you should enter a prep, especially at a pro level. And for me, I only did a 12-week prep entering my pro debut, and I don't think it was enough time. And I think that was proven for me when I spent 2 weeks after that continuing to prep and then competed again. And I feel like I brought an even tighter package, an even better package. And part of what happened there with those 2 weeks off is I did get a couple cheat meals in there. Calories went up slightly. Workouts were adjusted slightly. It allowed for some time to not have to just be strict, cut, add more cardio. It allowed a little wiggle room to say, okay, you went through this 12-week aggressive cut, have a cheat meal. Let's increase calories this week. Let's add a refeed back in. Let's see how the body responds. And oftentimes, more than not, when you've been cutting for a set period of time, and then you allow your body to have those structured additional calories, that additional influx of food, and even in combination with a little recovery, the body responds so well, especially if you're someone that's been super consistent with your programming. So what I found was with doing that, I brought an even better package 2 weeks later. And I remember thinking to myself after the fact, man, what if I would have just given myself more time to really give it 100%? How much better would I have looked at that initial show? That is the major downside, you guys. Are you going to be ready in time? And that's a question that's just, it's hard to answer. It's especially hard to answer if you've never competed before. So if you are here watching this video, you've never competed before, you need to kind of ask yourself some questions and give yourself an honest assessment of where you're at today, because some of us just shouldn't just jump right into a prep. And sometimes folks come to me looking to sign up for a bikini competition, wanting to buy a bikini coaching program with me, and I'll possibly discourage you from doing so. And the reason being, if I've never worked with you and you've never done a bikini prep before, and you've just started your weight loss journey and you're just starting to see the results, and so you're getting that itch to compete, we still don't quite know how you're going to respond the further you get into this cut. Are you going to plateau? Have you been dieting for several months on end? And for us to just do 8 weeks of grinding it out is going to be too much on your system. We may not get you to where you need to be. So I often encourage people, when I haven't worked with them before, I don't usually just like to jump into a bikini prep if I haven't worked with you. I usually like to, depending on where you're at, focus on cutting more and going through a reverse stage before actually prepping for the competition. It's often not what people want to hear, because when you get the itch, when you get the motivation, you just want someone to tell you, yes, I'm here to help you achieve your goals. And it's not to say I don't want to help someone achieve their goals, but I also want to be realistic with people and not have them feel let down if in 12 weeks you are not ready to be on stage. Along those lines, I did develop a program, 12 Weeks to Bikini Pro, and part of that is it's actually longer than a 12-week program. It's a 16-week program, but it's something that you can implement on your own without utilizing a coach, and you can build in your own additional weeks there. It's not a program that's meant to say it has to be that set duration of time. You can actually extend it longer if needed based on how long you may need to prep. So with that said, why haven't I myself done a longer prep? Well, I did mention to you guys, I just feel like sometimes depending on your personality type, I do better under pressure, as mentioned. So be realistic with yourself. Are you going to do a 20 or 24 week prep, but not take the first 10 weeks seriously? I see this a lot. I really, really do. And that's why I've never entered such a long official prep. Sometimes it's just the way you mentally wrap your mind around these things, you know, because even prior to me doing my pro debut prep, I wasn't prepping. However, I was getting my body in a place where I felt like it was going to be in a good spot to do a 12-week prep, if that makes sense. So I wasn't cutting my macros, but what I was doing was starting to pay attention to my eating. I was starting to make sure I was making healthier choices, eating consistent meals, because we can go through this period where if you're not prepping, this is fine. You can eat what you want. You can eat whatever time of day you want. You can choose whatever the hell you want to choose, right? But if you're going to go through a bodybuilding prep, you have to be much more deliberate and intentional with your choices, with your nutrition, and with your workouts. So if you're not in a spot where that's already part of your lifestyle, I would urge you to not jump into a prep. I would first focus on, even if you're not tracking, that's fine. Just get yourself more into a consistent routine routine of what you're eating, what kinds of foods you're choosing, what do your workouts look like, getting consistent on both angles with nutrition and workouts, because really those two need to be locked down, solid, before even considering entering a prep. So those are some of the things that I do kind of like warm up, it's kind of like pre-gaming for prep is how I approach that. So for me, I guess you could kind of consider it part of the prep, but mentally it's not as cumbersome, because in my head I'm like, I'm not prepping yet, just kind of getting my shit together stage. And that just gets you in a good spot when you do jump into your prep. And then for me, I'm ready to hit it hard, do whatever my coach needs me to do, and follow it to a T for those 12 weeks. So you need to ask yourself, are you someone that's going to get burnt out quickly from doing a longer prep? Are you someone that when you hire a coach, you do it hands down 100%, you put your heart and soul, you put your all into it? Then maybe you would benefit from a longer prep. I do think it just very general here, regardless of where your starting point is, I think 16 weeks is perfect. So you're talking about 4 months of active, purposeful actions towards the goal of stepping on stage. Beyond 4 months to me it's a little hard in my mind to wrap my brain around. It just feels like 4 months out of the year, that's a third of your year. That's a third of that year being dedicated towards that goal. No matter how small or big it is to the person, I just think that's a big chunk of time to dedicate towards a cut. And let's not skip over the fact that when we are cutting and when we are in extremes while we're continuously, in a deficit, further pushing the deficit, especially when it comes to bikini prep, this is where it differs than just weight loss. We are doing that whatever it takes mentality. So if it means carbohydrates are going to get drastically low, which for most folks they do, that's just the honest truth. It doesn't mean anyone is carbophobic here. It just means to lose weight, we're typically going to keep protein higher and stable, and we're going to make cuts to our carbohydrates and our fats. With cutting those macronutrients, we potentially do risk our health a bit, right? Hormonal health we've seen dramatically get impacted when we get fats way too low, especially when we're talking about females. And for males who are watching this, the same applies to you as well. Whether you're prepping or going through a real extreme weight loss phase, your hormones are going to be altered by how drastically low you're getting your calories, by how low you're getting those fats in your diet. We know how much fat impacts our hormonal health. So it's important to not be there too long, honestly. Yes, we do need to peak. We need to hit the sweet spot for which we are competitive for stepping on stage. But ultimately, for me, my coach's perspective, now that I'm more so wearing a coach's hat for the past couple years, is maintaining the health of my client, getting you to the point where you are competitive on stage, but let's be smart about how we're going about getting there and how we're going about reversing out of it after the fact. That's why I still kind of have this concern with taking a prep too much longer than 16 weeks, depending on, again, everyone's metabolism is different. So, you may have a really great healthy metabolism, and getting real low for carbohydrates for you may be 150 grams a day. For someone else, that might be taking it down as low as 50 grams a day, maybe even lower in some circumstances. So you really want to caution being in that low end extreme for too long, which is where I fear if you're doing a super duper long prep, it begs the question to me if you should be prepping at all. So this brings me to my kind of bigger point here in this video is before entering a bodybuilding prep, really consider where you're at right now. Are you in the best physical spot to be starting a prep? And be honest with yourself about it. And I usually get some emails after videos like this, and I do encourage it. If you need an honest opinion, I don't mind if you want to reach out to me, whether or not you're in a spot to be starting a prep or not. And so that's something you need to dive into a bit more. If you're working with a coach, discuss it with them. Considerations are going to be things like, are you currently in a cut? Have you been cutting? And if you have been cutting, for what time frame? If someone comes to me and they've already been cutting for 5 months and says, hey, I kind of want to do a bodybuilding show. I'm like, that's cool, but we need to bring your calories up for an extended period of time before we even entertain that idea. Because again, we need to think about the hormonal health. I don't know how many friends I've seen and just folks on social media who struggle post-show with, well, losing their period, amenorrhea during that type of bodybuilding cut where you're in that deficit. And then the struggle to then gain it back post-show with your period, your menstruation, and how that impacts you in terms of wanting a family in the future. It's something I've seen a lot of women struggle with, and it's sometimes taken them a couple months, and other times it's taken them years. Does causation equal correlation in this event? I don't know. There could be so many other factors there. Maybe this person was predisposed already to have fertility issues. I don't know. It's going to be different based on everyone. You just know that you see a lot of women struggle with hormonal issues post-show who have maybe taken themselves through that extreme for way too long. Whole separate topic is once you get there and once you compete, how long do you maintain that level of leanness? And if there's no shows on the horizon, then my best advice to you is reverse out of it as quickly as possible. Yes, you're going to gain some fat. You should gain some fat. The way you look on the stage for show day should not be maintainable, and that should be the difference between someone just trying to lose weight or maybe reach some health goals that they're trying to achieve versus bodybuilding, which we know isn't really a healthy sport in a lot of ways. It's something as a dietitian I have personally felt conflicted with. I feel conflicted sometimes with the message I can give off because for me, ultimately, health over everything. But at the same time, I have this passion and love for bodybuilding, and the sport I feel like has done so much for me personally in a positive aspect. So to me, it outweighs it. But I think you have to be really smart about what you're getting into and having a good understanding of your health and where it is at the beginning of a prep and how long you plan on going with this prep and thinking about what implications it could have on you. Are you planning on prepping and then ultimately trying to start a family right afterwards? Probably not the best idea, ladies. I'm going to be honest with you. Your body is not going to be in a spot to best get pregnant, let's be honest. With the duration of your prep, you just really want to think about what life after prep is going to look like. You want to think about this regardless, but also in terms of that time duration because of the negative implications that can occur with prepping in terms of your hormone levels, in terms of your mood, your energy, and it is going to take some time to build all those things back up. Your sex drive as well. All these things that are kind of going to be out of whack that you're going to need to really work actively on reversing and improving those post-show. So all that plays into it. Your health is really a big factor here. And look, for a lot of us, you know, you can put the pedal to the metal and get stage lean and shredded in 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 12 weeks, you name it. It's going to take a different level of extreme of how you're going to get there. Really, guys, there's no black and white answer. It's going to take a good hard look at yourself, where you're at, what you've been doing, what you plan on doing, to kind of figure out the timeline of this all. And I do want to say there's no perfect way to know how you're going to respond. So even if your coach says, yes, I think you are going to be ready in 12 weeks, you can't be mad at the coach if in 12 weeks you're not ready, honestly. And a good coach will tell you if you're ready or not. And being ready to compete, I feel like it's all relative to you and what your purpose is, what your why is, and why you're competing. So I work with women sometimes who we get them on stage even though we know they're not going to win first place. That's not me being a jerk. That's just the honest truth that we knew you were in a starting spot where if we had to shed 30 pounds, more than that, things like that, you're probably not going to be as competitive as you you could have been. But sometimes we get you on stage anyways because we have other shows planned, or because your goal was quite simply just to do the damn thing. And there's nothing wrong with that either. So just for fellow coaches out there, for the competitors, don't be mad at your coach if it doesn't work out. Really, it's more so about you than the coach. I would never take credit for what my clients do because they're the ones putting in the work. So you kind of have to ask yourself during your prep, did you put in the work? Did you put in the blood, sweat, and tears? Did you give 110%? Did you miss workouts? Did you kind of cheat on your meals, but you kind of made it fit in? Were you doing the best you could? There's all these things that you do have control over that create variables within your prep. And it's kind of trial and error for both of us as a coach and a client to figure out that sweet spot that gets you ready in time. With that said, I always like having a show in mind with shows close by for my clients or myself, because it gives you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, okay? So if you plan on a 12-week prep to get you to that stage, but you just know like you're not comfortable, your lower body hasn't totally leaned out yet, and you don't want to go out there until you feel 100% confident, then you have those couple other shows close by. So if you are a noob to the bodybuilding world, that's what I would suggest. Have a few shows lined up, all relatively within the same time frame, so within the same month or two. You don't really want to be spreading out your preps by doing a show here and then 3 months later. It creates this really challenging time in terms of what to do with your diets and your exercise. So when able to, kind of plan them close together. That way you do have some backup plans. That way you can plan on potentially having a warm-up show. I love having a warm-up show. Gets you out there, you kind of get over the stage nerves. Maybe you don't even know you have stage nerves, but you experience them that day. It just kind of allows you to get your feet wet a little, feel more comfortable, feel more confident, lights that fire so that the next show you just fucking murder it. That's how I always feel about it. So I think that's your best approach. While I didn't have a straight answer for you guys in this video, I hope I helped you kind of weigh out the pros and cons of a longer prep versus a shorter prep and what may work best for you guys, as well as considering any health implications. If you guys did find this video helpful, please hit the thumbs up button before you jet out of here, and also leave a comment below if you want to discuss this topic more. If you have competed, let me know what your sweet spot is below for how long you like to prep for, and any other prep or bodybuilding type topics you guys would like me to cover. That's it for Bruce Wayne and I hope you enjoyed this video, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.